actually, the main thing to do is to book a proper package holiday through a real life travel agent, because the agent will be able to give you good professional expertise. The fact that you're booking a package holiday means that either the holiday company gives you the holiday that you booked, or you get a full refund. Simple as that.
Hello and welcome to the MoneyMagpie podcast. If you're watching this podcast as opposed to just listening to it, don't forget to share and like this video. I'm told I have to do that every time. Oh, and basically just tell everybody you know how fabulous it is. You know you want to do that anyway. I'm Jasmine Birtles. I'm the founder of MoneyMagpie, and I'm joined today by my friend Simon Calder, who's the travel editor of the Independent newspaper. Thank you, Simon, for joining us.
Oh, it's a huge pleasure. I'd like to say that I'm in some wild and wonderful international airport, but sadly I'm not. I'm in London, England, but I've got a year's worth of plans ahead, and I think things are getting much, much better.
Oh, good, because that was essentially the first question I was going to ask you. What is the situation? It seems to be opening up. It seems to be easier. Is it really?
Right. The pace of change is extraordinary. A couple of weeks ago, Jasmine, I was complaining about how we were still at the kind of one step forward, two steps back phase of travel. You'll remember that Christmas was an absolute write-off for many, many people in terms of international travel, because France, our second most popular country after Spain, decided we're going to keep those Brits out for nearly 4 weeks from the 18th of December. Germany did the same, but they were later to start and much quicker to end. And then, unbelievably, right up until the Monday of half term for many schools, Spain was just saying, nope, we don't care if you're a family with a 12-year-old who hasn't got vaccinated. Unless they're fully jabbed, they're not coming in, so go somewhere else for your holiday. Now, in what I think is the worst timed COVID travel announcement of the entire pandemic, the health minister, the interior minister in Spain finally came out and said, oh yes, we've realized that it's quite difficult for 12-year-olds to get jabs in Britain, so we're going to change this rule, but not till Monday. France ditched the completely pointless pre-departure test on the Saturday at the start of the half term. And from a money point of view, it was so frustrating because many people, all families have kind of booked their tests. Many of them had taken them the previous day. They turned up at the airport or at Eurostar in London. Nobody was remotely interested in seeing them because the rule had changed. And that, it's going to put an awful lot of people off. But what we've also seen in the past week or so is some countries, in particular Norway, coming out and saying, okay, we're just open. Doesn't matter if you're vaccinated, no testing, no quarantine. Yeah, we know that infections are going to go through the roof, and they have been, but the health minister, very sensible woman, just said, yeah, we think we can handle this. So we're going to open up. Yeah, we're going to get more people in hospital. We're going to get more infections, but we believe that it is a balanced approach. And while that's going on, and we're seeing more and more of that, the Canadians suddenly on Wednesday morning got more sensible. There's still some parts of the world where effectively they just say, no, we'll let you know when we're good and ready. And guess what? People aren't going to be they're already going to have made plans for elsewhere. I'm talking about you, Western Australia.
Yeah. And this is part of my question, my next question, because as you know, we're always saying when it comes to saving money in travel, ideally you book well ahead or sort of last minute. It seems to me at the moment, you've really only got last minute for a lot of places, because you really don't know until last minute what's going to be happening properly.
Very much so. In a couple of days, I'll be spending about £1,000 on a flight to Australia. Now, traveling flying the next day. Now, I don't know which airline I'll be going on. I don't even know whether I'll be flying west over the Atlantic and the Pacific or east over Asia, because if you go to the other side of the world, of course, it's great to have a stopover, one of the joys of travel. And for work purposes, I'd actually like to stop over in Qatar. It's not too hot at the moment. They got the World Cup coming up. I want to go around and survey everything, so I'm in a good position to write and talk about the World Cup in that Gulf state, which has no footballing tradition, and nobody can quite understand how it got the gig, but it did, and so I want to do that. However, Qatar is sitting there saying, no, you're on the red list, you're on the red list, you can't come in. But I'm saying, but hang on, you've got Belarus, you've got Russia on the green list.
Yeah,
You know that they lie about their figures. So how come we who tell the truth are on your red list, and people who make up some numbers are on the green list? And so I'm hoping that, I'm leaving it to the last possible moment. And I mean, I know that from a financial point of view, there is always, you can always travel westbound. United Airlines, since the dawn of time, Jasmine, has sold on the day or the day before tickets to Australia for about £750 return. And yeah, it's a long old flight. You're going the long way around, but and you also get that annoying thing of going over the date line of just losing Sunday completely,
yes.
which would be annoying. But on the other hand, you get where you need to be at a sensible price. But if Qatar Airways wants my money, then they can have it. They just need to persuade their government to be a bit more sensible.
Well, yeah. So if you're a family and you're thinking, okay, summer holiday, if you are thinking that far ahead, and I think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
What would you just basically say, right, I'm going to book something relatively cheap, and then I'm going to have really good insurance or something like that?
Oh, now look, a lot of people think that insurance is, I've got insurance. I mean, I'm a high risk person, I think, but I've got some insurance. I'm sure I've got it somewhere. But I cannot remember the last time I claimed off insurance or anything, because almost always, in terms of cancellations and changes and so on, there's another better, more effective, more immediate remedy. So in the case of a family holiday, sure, if you want to, you can get travel insurance. And by the way, you and I can talk sometime about travel insurance in more detail. But actually, the main thing to do is to book a proper package holiday through a real life travel agent, because the agent will be able to give you good professional expertise. The fact that you're booking a package holiday means that either the holiday company gives you the holiday that you booked, or you get a full refund. Simple as that. I'm still, as I'm sure you are, getting 10 times a day notes from people who are saying, oh yeah, I booked through an online travel agent, I booked the accommodation and the car rental separately, it all went tango uniform, as we say in the travel industry, and now nobody's interested in giving me my money back. Well, of course they're not. I mean, it's a grubby old business on the far extremes of the travel industry. So that's what you do. But I have got exactly zero forward bookings. That isn't that I'm going to have. I'm looking forward hugely to lots and lots of traveling this year. I'm just booking late. And for the family holiday, yes, if there's a particular beach you want in Spain or on a Greek island in a particular week, then by all means book it now. Get good professional advice on it. Book that holiday. But there's always going to be stuff around. And I think, and prices probably most people will have seen kind of, hang on, that's 25, 50% more than I paid last time. But that's because you got a lid on capacity. And as soon as other people see that some companies are making an absolute fortune, then capacity piles in and prices go down. One exception to that, if I may, Jasmine, car rental, because you can't just switch on car rental just like that. We've got semiconductor shortages, which means that cars aren't coming off the production line, which means that rental car companies can't ramp up their fleets as quickly as they would like to. And I'm hearing prices 2, 3, 4 times higher than you would expect. So
Yes.
public transport is always available. And there's also Turo. Do you know about Turo?
Oh,
That's where, now you haven't got a car, have you?
No.
Neither have I. But if I did have, then I could rent it out to people like the Airbnb of car rentals.
Yes.
And my Reliant 3-wheeler, I would take along to some dodgy supermarket car park, and you turn up and you pay me 20 quid a day for the joy of driving it around. So there's always solutions, but the best solution is public transport, for goodness sake.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of cars and everything, I mean, a lot of people in the last 2 years have been doing staycations, and it seems to me that a lot of people are going to still do that this year. People are not keen on flying. They're not keen on all the testing and all of that nonsense. And so there's more staycations. I'm hearing that holidays in this country are going up in price. Do you have any suggestions there?
Yeah, don't go where everybody else wants to go. Now, to keep things in perspective, yes, it was an utterly catastrophic year last year for arrivals to the UK, but it was also pretty catastrophic for the mainstream UK domestic travel market. Now, if you wanted to go to a beautiful beachside hotel in Cornwall, or stay in a lovely cottage in the Lake District, you were paying an absolute arm and a leg for the privilege. However, if you thought, well, actually, we'll go to the beautiful beaches of Northumberland, or maybe let's explore Middle England, go to places like Stratford-on-Avon, a complete ghost town, because of course it's run exclusively for the enjoyment of foreign tourists, and long may they come here. So there's always places to go, and city centres, they're the places to be. I've been staying in city centres really very, very, very substantially. Had great times in Newcastle, in Cardiff, in Leeds, in Liverpool, paying really silly prices for great hotels. I think the lowest I've paid was about 25 quid in a Travelodge in Cardiff, same in Leeds. And even a couple of weekends ago, 80 quid for the Hilton in Liverpool, which I'd never stay in normally, but 80 quid, all right, I'll have that. So stay in cities. You can go out to the beaches, of course, just hop on the local trains. That's the way to do it. So lots of options. And just going back to traveling abroad, I mean, the absolute standbys. You and I don't have cars, but lots of people who are listening and watching will. You've got a car, you've got a family. The backstop is you pile them all in the car, you drive to the Channel. Sorry, I'm not very good at driving, so that's my impression of it. You drive to the Channel, you head over to, well, my favourite area is Dieppe, and kind of going west from there towards Le Havre, and you find a lovely campsite. And then you're going to get a cut price holiday, do all your shopping in the local hypermarché, and you're laughing. Or if you do want to fly further south, then go to a business centre somewhere like Madrid or Milan, and then travel on from there by public transport. It'll be much cheaper, much easier. There we are.
That's great. And then the vexed question of testing and the price. Again, we could talk for an hour about this, but I mean, again, it does seem to be changing all the time. Suddenly the country you're going to says, oh, it's all right, we're not going to be able to bother with testing. Is there anything you can suggest, I guess, if you have to do the tests, to do them cheaper than normal?
Right. Well, you've now made me feel cross, Jasmine.
Sorry.
No, just about the Transport Secretary, his announcement in January saying, oh, I've concluded that post-arrival tests for fully vaccinated people are a complete waste of time. I slightly paraphrase. So therefore, we're getting rid of them. So I thought, great, well, that's terrific. Starting now, everyone will save, 25 quid or whatever. And he said, but not for another 18 days. And I calculated that British travellers handed to the testing companies £60 million for tests that the guy who'd ordered them to stay in place had said had outlived their usefulness. I mean, it's just shocking, but it shows you what governments are doing. So the French have got rid of theirs. Look, I always, and for my trip, which might be westbound, it might be eastbound, who knows? I will be going to a proper testing centre with a professional person. Last time I was in Germany, it was Big Dennis. He was the nurse. Crikey. That test, if there was ever any sign of any infection, he was going to find that. Anyway, and I will pay 30 quid for a properly medically administered test, partly because I think, well, for goodness sake, me sitting there with my little swab going, oh, it tickles, isn't going to be as effective as Big Dennis. So therefore, for public health reasons, it's important, but also increasingly many countries are, and I'm thinking here of, I think Singapore, certainly Australia, are saying, yeah, you can come in, but you're going to have a proper medically administered test. None of this, oh, look, here's a photo of me with a negative lateral flow. That means I've tested. No, it doesn't, you idiot. Not you, obviously, but so that's what they're doing. I mean, I can't believe that the UK has been so lax, so that, for example, summer of 2021, loads of people coming back into the UK, bunches of lads. I heard quite a lot of anecdotal stories about how, one of them would test positive, so they'd work out who wasn't positive, and then he would do all the tests for all of them. I mean, it's just awful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And poor old next door's cat gets quite a lot of testing, I understand.
Yes.
Anyway.
And so you're saying that it's worth paying the 30 quid to do a medical.
You might as well do it properly, and also increasingly there is, if you are going to have to do a test, they're basically saying, come on, let's be serious about this, do a proper one.
Yeah.
I absolutely cannot do a PCR test, a lateral flow test as effectively as Big Dennis or one of his excellent colleagues.
Yes. And then, speaking of testing, if you are unvaccinated, again, there seem to be quite a few countries that are either saying, have actually opened up to the unvaccinated, or saying they will at some point. Again, is it a sort of question of last minute stuff? Because you never know, they could bring the restrictions back in at any point.
Yeah, they could do, but I will take you back to the Norwegian health minister. Yep, we know this is going to cause problems. Yep, we're not going to. Well, how can we put it? Because this is such a sensitive subject. Unvaccinated people who've said, I do not wish to be jabbed, will be possible, or I medically cannot have a jab. They will be saying, well, thank goodness somebody's not discriminating against us. But there's, I would say, equally many people who say that people who choose not to get jabbed are presenting a health hazard, and therefore they will say that there should be restrictions. I am not going to take any sides on this. I'm just going to point out that, yes, Norway has effectively opened up. Plucky Lithuania, just as I was setting up to join you, they said, oh, yeah, we're going to open up too. And this will become, I think, more prevalent. And bear in mind that the UK, from an unvaccinated traveller's point of view, had a huge change on the 11th of February, because the big change for me was that I didn't need a post-arrival test because I'm fully vaccinated. But an even bigger change for unvaccinated people coming to the UK is that self-isolation ended. Yes, they need pre-departure test. Yes, they need a post-arrival test. But that I think will become a thing. And it's absolutely important that we have a debate about what happens to the very significant number of people who are not vaccinated for whatever reason, and how travel can continue.
Well, yes, also, and particularly because as we're seeing in places like Israel and Italy that are highly jabbed, they have very, very high rates of COVID. So I think that conversation needs to happen as well. Is it really the case that the unvaccinated are bringing it while the vaccinated are not, or is it actually both? That I think that's something that's happening, beginning to be looked at the moment. So we may see a whole raft of changes by the end of the year on that.
Oh, I think so. But the pace of change at the moment is such that I can barely keep up with it. And it's my sort of job to work out what's happening with it. Yeah. So but can I just on the whole jabs testing certification business, there's one point which I think a lot of your viewers and listeners need to know about, because it's one of those things you'll have seen this, various subjects, social media goes wild, and what the European Union has brought in. And to be fair, the European Union has been more, they've had a more coherent pan-national policy than pretty much anywhere else in the world. They've said, okay, so your original course of jabs expires 270 days, almost 9 months after you have had the last jab. And everyone thinks, but you can have a booster and that will trump it. And everyone says, well, that's fine, but I had my booster last July. It's going to run out in 10 minutes. But the crucial thing is that the booster has no time limit on it on any country that I have seen so far. So therefore, yeah, your original jabs may well be extinct now, but if you've had the booster, then that suffices.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting to see how long that particular rule lasts.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, the next thing which will happen is that we may or may not get your booster's going to run out after 270 days too. And yeah, but I think if we do get onto fourth jabs, then that will be because there is a demonstrable public health reason for doing that. And I think we would find that most of us would be able to get that fourth jab in a reasonable amount of time.
So finally, your feeling about holidays in 2022 is kind of leave it as long as you can, basically. And do it, if you're going to book, particularly for the family, do it through a reputable travel agent, not just putting it together online.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, if you're just getting a cheap flight to Barcelona, and you've got friends there, and that's all you want, then it's not really worth troubling a travel professional for that. You might as well do it online. But anything more complicated, get a proper travel agent. And while I'm happy to book last minute, that's because experience has told me that there will always be availability, particularly if you're like me, Billy no mates, and nobody's going to go with you. There's always room for one more, I have found in general. But anticipation is a really important part of the travel experience. And yes, if you want to have something to look forward to, then book that holiday. I'm in the happy position of being able to think, yeah, I'm going to go hiking in the Pyrenees in September, but I know because experience has told me that I will be able to get flights and everything else, and I'm just not committing because unraveling stuff is tedious and grueling and often expensive. So yeah, but do yourself a favor, look forward to travel, and if that requires you to make a booking, then make that booking, but just do it sensibly.
I'm just thinking, actually, finally, I'm thinking about the high street near me. There's Flight Centre, there's Trail Finders. There's not much, it used to be that there were lots of travel agents on the high street. Where do you find them now? Do you just put travel agent?
Well, now I think people who are listening to this and watching this might not know just how sophisticated that you are, and you live in a part of London where they don't really have a sort of proper high street. But I would say that most of us reside in places where, yeah, there's a travel agent. There's probably not 4 or 5 like there were 20 years ago, but there's certainly 1 or 2. And it's good to be able to go in and talk to somebody face to face, but otherwise, talk to them by phone. Lots of that there are an awful lot of good travel professionals who basically run on phones, And companies like travel counselors are very, very good. And then I tend to use also kind of specialist agents. So, for example, for my trip to Australia, I'm going to phone around a few places like Flight Centre and Trail Finders and get the best deal. But for going on cruises, for instance, there's also always one agent that I always use, and she will continue to get my business. But there's great professionals out there, and they need to be rewarded. So finally, just bite the bullet. Things to cost more than they did last time you had a proper holiday. But those of me, sorry, not you, of course, those of us who can remember back to the 20th century will know that relative to wages, travel remains incredibly good value in 2022 compared with 1992 when you weren't even born.
Well, it's so true. So true. Thank you, Simon. Thank you for being a gentleman. And thank you for all that information. So this has been the Money Magpie podcast with Simon Calder, travel editor of the Independent newspaper. Thank you for joining us all. And don't forget to share and like, as I say, and tell all your friends how marvelous it was. Today's podcast was presented by me, Jasmine Birtles, and this is Money Magpie.